You are now listening to the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be listening to us. I'm your host, Rob Kennedy, and this is Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast. I'm sitting here with my co-host, Mickie Dell. How are you, my friend?
Robbie, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. On Twitter, I am the big horse, but between us, I'm Mickie Dell. Robbie, big night in store tonight.
Mate, massive. And if anybody's just noticed that I've had probably the quickest intro of my life, it's because I'm sweating a little bit of bullets here. We have picked the most craziest time to go live, go in a new studio, and bring in absolute Supercoach royalty as a special guest today. So I'm going to throw a lot more to you, Mickie Dell, to introduce our guest, talk about a little bit of what's going on, and I'm going to try and be this button monkey over here that does things and do my best to keep this show all together. But Mickie, I'm going to throw back to you because, like I've just said, we are so privileged to have a special guest with us today. One day out from round one, with some of the biggest news breaking of everyone having Elliot Yeo in their side and now scrambling to how the hell do we make this money back up again? And what am I going to do with my D3, my D2, for those people who had him in D2? I'm going to throw to you. Please introduce our guest and let's see how we go.
Guys, before we continue on, just remember to like and subscribe to our podcast. As we've said all along, we bring you premium content. We're not about pleasing you. We're all about giving you the stats, the figures in order to make you one of the top-notch players in Supercoach 2023. And who better to help us before round one starting tomorrow than the 2019 overall Supercoach champion, Dwayne Delminico. How are you, Dwayne?
Good, gents. Thank you very much for having me.
No, you're right. So what we'll do just before we kick into the Supercoach side of things, tell us a little bit about your footy history. Did you play a bit of footy growing up, or?
Oh, there's not much history, to be honest. Bit of country footy growing up. Didn't achieve a hell of a lot. Bit of amateur footy when I got to Melbourne. Honestly, playing Division 4, Division 5, sort of in and out of the twos, up to the ones type player. But it's been a while actually. It's been 10 years since I played, so I was 23, 24 when I gave it away.
Yeah. I've got a shout out at the moment to our good friend, our mutual friend, Jeremy Phelan. Jezza, while you're watching over in New York, mate, thank you very much for teeing this up for us. We appreciate it. You'll be getting a standard squeeze pack sent your way. So, Dwayne, tell us, 2019, your claim to fame. You won $50,000. Tell us, how did you start that year? Can you remember, how did you set up your side? Did you go with your primos and rookies, or how many risks did you take?
I didn't take many at all. It would have been the guns and rookies strategy. I was having to think about it and I look back today. I had some old notes. I had an old set of rules, which was funny to read over. It was no injury prone players, no breakout players in years 2 to 4. That was one of my rules. And I broke both of those rules, mind you. But I guess for me, what I did well was I think I jumped on players quickly. I remember one of the best moves I made was getting in Rowan Marshall. He actually missed round one. He was suspended, so not many teams had him. And thankfully, a friend of mine had been, raving about him all pre-season as we do. And I think I must have had an injury round one, and I brought Marshall straight in. And at that stage, he was worth maybe 250,000 or whatever it was.
I remember this.
He went on to average about 110 for the rest of the year. So that was a ripping start, to be honest.
So I'm gonna assume that mate's taking all claim for you winning in 2019. We've all got that friend who said, "Remember when I was stone cold drunk and told you that? I expect 10 grand, thank you," or at least drop my name once or twice in every interview you do. Is that kind of how it goes?
I will drop his name. Paul Holmes was his name.
There we go. I love it. See, the deals are on. I love it.
There's a few of them actually. Justin Gale, he gave me a ripping tip, and our mate Jezza Phelan,
right.
claims he gave me a tip, but I don't think he did.
I don't believe it.
Last bit.
Yeah, good. So you talk about Rowan Marshall being your diamond in the rough that you picked up that year. Were there any that you look back and go, oh, geez, I picked him up and I held on to him for too long, or he was someone that you were sort of erring, yes, no, and you end up taking him and then it's sort of you're like, yep, I've got to get rid of him. I've got to manipulate him, or I've got to turn him into something. Were there any of those plays that you had?
Yeah, there were a couple. Sort of the last 10 rounds of the season, I was in the top 10. And by that stage, you know which players. So everyone else in the top 10, you sort of have 5, 6, 7 different on every team. So it really comes down to that 6 or 7 who's going to make or break, winning it or, fading away. I had Stephen Cornelio. I remember it. He went on a bad run of form. Everyone else in the top 10 had dumped him by this stage. I held on to him. He then got injured. I still held on to him. He then came out and scored 0. And I thought, you are joking. I actually remember the game. I turned the game on. I was about, a minute into the game. I'm looking around thinking, where's Cornelio? And, found out that he had scored 0 and gone off injured. But there was about a 3-week period where I had him score a 0. I put the captaincy on Max Gawn, who scored 40. And then I believe I still had Marty Hoare, and I put him on the field and he scored 5. So I had this 3-week period where I was second and I went out to about 10th because of all these injuries early on. But that were the 3 that spring to mind.
It's amazing. To anyone listening along and playing along at home with being live, make sure you send us through any questions. We can pepper these questions through and ask any questions. I will let people know we are privileged enough to see Dwayne's team, and we will try and share a little bit of it and get him to speak to it. And I'll tell you what, it's impressive and it's a little bit different, which speaks to my mantra a bit, which is I think we have to have a little bit of point of difference without going too crazy. But I'm intrigued to get your intake and on what that side looks like. Any more questions from you, Mick, or is that kind of where we want to head? Do we want to head to the
I guess
team?
One more that I have, and I want to talk to you about this year now. The team you have now, like we've spoken a little bit in conversations over the phone, but for the viewers at home, your theory this year or your game plan this year, like a lot of teams or a lot of people in the Supercoach community have the same players this year. Are you looking to go a little bit more pod? Your point of difference players that could potentially be scoring the same to be different to everyone else, or are you still looking to have those same players, or which angle are you looking to take?
Typically what I do most seasons is I try to look at the rules or the rule changes, be it in the game or in Supercoach itself. And I always will just go all in whatever I think the edge might be. And that might have been a couple of years ago when kick-ins started getting points.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I started with 6 premiums in my defense. It was a ridiculous strategy and I got totally burnt. But this year, I guess, a few years ago, it used to be 20 trades per season. Now it's up to 36. And you get the bonus, the bonus trade that you can use 5 times or 5 rounds. So my strategy this year is it's mid-price madness. It's a few years ago, if I looked at a team like this, I would have just said that's absolute rubbish, and it probably will be. It'll probably blow up really quickly. But my strategy is that you have a lot more trades, so you can have a lot more mid prices. You obviously retain the good ones and quickly dump the ones that aren't performing. And those excess trades that you burn don't come back to hurt you later on because you do have 36 to use. So that's my angle. And
I think you're spot on, because when we do reveal the team in a bit, as you said, if you looked at a team like that 2 years ago, you'd be like, what are you doing? You're somebody who's sort of coming in and just trying to, make your team as deep as possible and hope you get points rather than get those sort of primo points in what you're doing. So as a previous winner, where do you sit on liking or disliking the rule changes this year? I mean, I know where I sit with a couple. I used to always love the less trades. I think that's where you had to be strategic, and that's where you can look back on and pick your moments, and looking at those break evens were extremely important, and like being able to read those trends and things like that. Where does it sit with you with the current rule changes and moving forward?
I typically blow all my trades up really quickly, and my team, it normally goes all right, and then with 5-6 rounds left, it just bombs because I've got no trades left. So I absolutely love all these extra trades. It means I can pretty much trade every week because I can't help myself regardless. So I think it keeps the interest there, just for everyone, including the top guys, the mid guys, whoever plays. So yeah, I really love it. Even the year that I won, I had no trades left with 4 rounds to go.
Wow.
And,
Huge. That's huge. You must have been. I said I'm sweating bullets at the start of this episode. There must have been a period of time there where you're just sitting there going, mate, was there a moment there in like those last 2 weeks or the last week that you're sort of just watching closely going, this could really hurt me now. I wish I had one trade, and then it maybe actually turned out all right for you? Or how did that sit that last week?
Yeah, I remember watching a game and Rowan Marshall went down with what looked like an ACL. And I thought, and it was the first quarter, I had no trades left. I thought my team's toast. And anyway, at quarter time, I remember he came back out and he played the rest of the game and the rest of the season. I just thought, how is this even happening? But the big thing
he was in your side, mate.
You gave him a rev up.
Yeah, I ran down to Telstra on my Etihad or whatever it's called.
I've got no trades left, mate. You have to play.
I'll give you $5,000, Ron. The big one for me was actually I had brought in Scott Lycett.
Yeah.
Because Paddy Ryder got injured. Scott Lycett was going to be the sole ruckman, and I thought, huge upside. A mate of mine actually gave him the tip on that too, so that's off to him. But he went on a run and averaged 120 over 7 weeks, and then he got dropped. So I remember at the time thinking, I don't think any players ever averaged 120 for 7 weeks and then been dropped. I thought, Ken Hinkley, you've just destroyed my chances of winning Supercoach. You're an absolute, whatever I was calling him. But Ken and Scott turned from villain to hero, because in round 23, Lycett came back into the team after being out for 3 weeks. And going into the last game of that last round, I was 40 points behind the guy who was coming first, and I was coming second.
Yeah.
So he had 40 points and Travis Boak. I had Scott Lycett.
Wow.
And Ken, being the good man that he is, sent Boak to forward pocket. And I think Lycett was on about 50 at quarter time, and I remember Boak was on -2.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm actually a massive chance here. And
Yeah.
I snuck home by 14 points.
Bloody love it. I just took a moment. I mean, me and Mick said wow at the same time. I think we're glued to it like 2 7-year-old schoolboys listening to our fantasy story of all time. Like, I think it's just a moment that you go, I remember, like, I was thinking about this when we started doing this podcast, where this all started for me and my old man just sitting with the newspaper back in the day when fantasy first came out. We actually wrote the teams in there and things like that. I've always thought what it would have been like to be that close or to get an opportunity, and writing that last game must have just been absolutely epic for you. I think for you, setting that scene, you're probably like, you know what, I'm not going to get this. 40 points in Trav Boak v Scotty Lycett. But after quarter time, I'm sure that's probably one of the most exciting Port Adelaide games you've ever watched of all time. And we haven't asked that question. Who do you support? Who do you go for?
Collingwood.
Okay. Explains a little bit about your D2. Explains a little bit about your D2, and you're breaking your rule of year 2, year 3, year 4 breakouts. But I think that leans us into it now. Now,
let's do it.
Bear with me, everybody. I'm going to try and share screen here and play around with our backgrounds a little bit. Give me 1 second. And thanks for sending through some questions. I think Nathan NJB sent one through, which got answered as well. You're taking that trade-heavy approach early into the season or setting yourself up. As we heard, Dwayne loves to use and churn and burn, and I think the rules are allowing him to do that now. So keep sending through those questions. We're happy to answer them.
I can also see in the live
Nick,
chat
talk
there,
through it as
Robbie.
I'm setting this up, mate. Go for it.
I can also see in the live chat one of our sponsors, the Standard Squeeze, has jumped on and given us a shout out. So while you're punching through that, mate, looking for Dwayne's side, let's give them a shout out. Thank you very much for coming on board as a sponsor of our podcast. And what we'll be doing throughout the year is we'll be presenting an award each week. That will be to one lucky viewer, one lucky subscriber who comments pretty much the biggest call of the week or the ballsiest call of the week. If you think Jake Stringer's going to kick 10 and he kicks 10, that might be as far left wing as you can think of. But if it comes home, you win the prize pack each week. This will be starting round 1 this week. So get around it. There's a nice prize pack there from the Standard Squeeze to win. So jump on, like and subscribe to the podcast. Go your hardest.
Now, I feel like we're back in the COVID days a little bit. I really hope everyone can see my shared screen now. Dare I say, can you hear me? Can you see what I'm presenting? But to me, it looks like it's all up there. I'm hoping you boys can see that as well. And we'll start with your defenders. We can see you got 88,000 K there still to play with, which is always nice. And we'll let you talk us through it. We'll hand it over to you, Dwayne.
Yeah, I did have Yo in, obviously, and traded him down to Jack Bowes. That's where the 88K came from. But for me, I had Yo, Dacos. It was just the thought that these guys are going to be playing midfield, essentially. So I feel like, as much Dacos is one that I do have doubts on because of the tag and only a second-year player. And I think the back end of last year, he actually didn't average that well. But on the flip side of that, I feel like these guys who play midfield, you've got the huge upside. Mm-hmm. You've got the potential for, you really have the potential for Dacos to end up being the top scoring defender, I think, if, he goes extremely well. And I think of, George Hewitt last year. I think he ended up averaging over 110.
Yeah.
So that's the simple thought process there. In terms of Ginby, Constable, Wilmot, Cowan, I've just followed the pack there. I think they, they should score well. Ginby and Constable, I'm pretty happy having them on the field.
Yeah, for sure.
And in terms of Ridley, I feel like Ridley is another one who has that really high ceiling, and I love going for players with that high ceiling rather than maybe the more consistent type. For him, he's proven in the past that he can do it when he has that right role. Now, the risk there is obviously the role, right? Like they've got a new coach in Brad Scott, and whether he plays him in that free roaming, intercepting role all the time is one thing. But given his ceiling, I'm happy to take the risk on him. And if it doesn't work out, you can quickly sideways trade him.
Yeah. And we've talked a lot about to our listeners and viewers and all that sort of stuff about there's a big difference between trying to win the whole thing and trying to win your league. And someone having a high ceiling and maybe has a bit of a lower week, it's not about winning your round to round head to head against somebody else. It's about scoring the highest points you possibly can. So if Ridley ends up with a big total score, well, that's what you're looking for at the end of the season where he sits. So he's been an in and out one for me. I've ended up sort of I've gone the Doherty, Bailey Dale and Angus Brayshaw route. And at the moment, I think Bowes might be one that comes in for me, but I've sort of gone the 3 rookies with them at the moment and put Sam Flanders in another spot with what's going on with Yo. But if I see Bowes named, I think there'll be a very quick move for me because I think his upside is huge. What's your thoughts, Del? What do you see when you look at that? And by the way, I'm a Hawks man, so I'm loving Day being in there. I think he's primed for a big year up on the wing. So your thoughts, Del?
Yeah, I like it. It's your top 4 there, Ridley, Day, they're pods, aren't they? They would not have a high ownership. Dacos, I think a lot of people got scared off with Dacos in that practice match against Hawthorn where he was effectively tagged all game off a back flank. But as Dwayne was saying, he's got some massive upside where if he plays midfield, it doesn't take that much to go from a 75 to 110, so he could well be the highest scoring backman this year. Bowes, I haven't heard anything. He was originally in my side. He's not at the moment. But the 4 that he's got at D5 through to D8, they're in my side as well. So I like the flexibility there. I like the cash in the bank. I like the difference there. It's not the same as everyone else.
Yep. And we see Cohen getting named, which was good. And Young, I think a lot of people threw Young in from Richmond, but not getting named, not even in the emergency. So I think there's been a little bit of a scramble change there for people as well. Did you have him in at all, Dwayne, or Young, or did you just wait and see?
No, never had him in at all.
Beautiful. All right, well, we'll scroll on. Let's see. Hopefully that's moving for everyone. Give me a second. Push this up. There we go. So we'll go with your midfielders now. Hopefully everyone can see that playing along at home. Talk us through. So anyone who's watching us along on YouTube and jump on and have a look on Facebook Live or through YouTube. Jack Steele in that M1 position. And I know you've talked about your mid-price madness. He's not mid-price, but you know what I mean. Talk us through your mids. You look like you've had a lot of fun, like a bit of a kid in a candy store here. So talk us through it, Dwayne.
Yeah, it doesn't really make you feel comfortable, this midfield, does it? You look at Steele, M1. I had Laird in there the whole preseason and thought to myself, he's the first player I'm selecting. There's no chance I'm getting rid of him. But then I thought, I might as well go all in on this mid-price madness and really see where it lands me. Steele, Kelly, and Green, I think, are just value. Steele, the obvious one to bounce back. I think he's proven he can go over 120. Josh Kelly, I swear to God, I've picked him every single season, and he's burnt me every single season. I just cannot help myself. I don't know what it is about this man. But this season, it's going to be the one, isn't it?
I hope so. Yeah, he's in my team.
There's a few people that do. I'm surprised where his percentage is still sitting with the amount of people he's talking about. He's still sitting at 6%, which makes me, with the run and gun style, we've talked a lot about the Orange team and how they're going to do some special things with the new coach at the helm. So, yeah, he's been the jelly legs for me as well, but I'm finding it hard not to keep him in there at that price with what he can produce. So, yeah.
Yeah. Tom Green I've got a bit of doubt about that selection. I think the early run for GWS is swaying me. I'm hoping he can get away to a good start and at least build some value there. Setterfield, I feel like I think he averaged 90 once previously, but he's never really had the role that you need to score well. At GWS, clearly he didn't have it. At Carlton, he did briefly get that chance and scored reasonably well. And I just feel like he now has that role. And at the end of the day, that's one of the main things I look at, to be honest. As you can see with my defence, centre bounce attendance, midfield, who's going to be, attending centre bounces on a really high percentage. That's what swayed me with Kelly and Green as well. I could be totally proven wrong there, but I'm hoping they get that huge uptick in centre bounce attendances, and that flows through to the scores. Hopper, an obvious one. Warpedo, that's, not feeling great there either. But I feel like, Tom Mitchell and Jago O'Meara, they're two big holes to fill in terms of the actual centre bounce attendances there. So I'm just hoping that high percentage of centre bounce attendances converts to his scoring, as bad as his disposal can be. And yeah, the rest of the guys there, I think most people have them pretty keen on Mackenzie. Even at the high price tag, he will be in the guts. Baker is an interesting one. I honestly didn't even have him on my radar prior to that 111 he put up in the preseason the other day. And the other two guys are in there, Chesser and Davey, give you that flexibility that can be handy.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Baker. Baker was an interesting one. We even talked about the fact that we just saw him mic'd up at training, and we were talking about how he's, they must obviously see something in him. He looked really comfortable at training, which is a weird thing to talk about, but to see him mic'd up, having a bit of fun, laugh and banter with the boys at a new team, and then go and score that 111 was, for me, he's actually on my field at the moment. But yeah, you've gone no guts, no glory. I like it. Are you looking at your captain out of this kind of group, or do you see your captain being somewhere else? Because I see possible hernias for you every Sunday. worrying about that sort of captain number. And that's why Laird's sitting in the spot for me, just to hopefully fix any possible VCs that just don't work for me.
That is the one that's a good point, and a fair old issue with this team is I went through the round one matchups and thought there's no real standout who's going to, blow this out of the park. I wouldn't putting Callie in there. I think he obviously has the history where he can go 150 plus, but he has a history where he can get injured in the first half and score you 25 as well. So putting the C on him on a Sunday wouldn't be great. That's the thing that is hurting me in terms of when I look at the whole team put together and that, whole team structure. I haven't put too much thought into that. I'm hoping, English and Rowan Marshall can turn into those dominant ruckmen that are, they're obviously the only ruckmen that are going to be in each of those teams. And I'm hoping that can really convert through to some massive scores. But, Jack Steele, Josh Kelly, Tim English, Rowan Marshall are really the only captain options I think I have in the team.
Yeah, interesting. Del, what's your thoughts, mate? And I've just sort of scrolled for everyone who's sort of playing along. You mentioned your rucks there, so I'll get Del's response. What are you thinking, Del? Where do you see the...
Yeah, all of these players that you've got in your midfield have been in my team at one time or another. The Josh Kelly, I like that you've got him in. I've got him in as well, but yeah, he's probably one of the only ones that I don't feel comfortable in having at the moment, even though he's at that premium price, because you just don't know when he's going to blow out a hamstring. So Tom Green, I've had him in. I've since removed him, just given that he's a lot like Clayton Oliver, but I don't feel as though he's as damaging with the ball as what Clayton can be forward of centre. Being an Essendon supporter myself, I brought this up on the last podcast. I think your Setterfields, Davey, these sorts of players, they're the only ones that you're really going to look at for Essendon this year. He's got big upside, and if he plays that inside mid role with Parrish alongside him, with Shield beside him, with Merritt, your ball users on the outside, that could potentially blow right up. And he has averaged 90s or low 90s with Carlton in the past. That could potentially go into the 100 area, from what I believe. For Hopper's out of my side now, and I'm quite comfortable not having him there, given that everyone else has got him, and I want to be a little bit different. So I'm going somewhere else with that money.
There you go, a little hot off the press. We're doing our team reveals pretty soon, as we're obviously closing in on round one. What I really do love about it, other than the obvious of having you on here, Dwayne, is this is now showing our viewers a very different approach, which is good. So what I've noticed so far, just from the first two lines, is you've kind of gone one deeper than me, and I've gone one, maybe the primo being maybe one level up in that sort of R1, sort of that M1 or D1 spot, even maybe the D2, M2. But it's an interesting look on how you divide the players out, because what Del's saying is exactly right. They're players that people are talking about, but when you actually put them in there in a different way, it's giving people a little bit to think about. And as we talked about, the rule changes possibly allow at this time to do something a bit different. So, mate, my rucks are the exact same. Do you want to talk us through your rucks? I've been big on Witts and Darcy all year. Now for a bit of a money thing and a bit of panic about Darcy, I have gone with English at the moment too. So tell us your thoughts on Timmy English there.
I've been keen on Darcy and English. They're the only two I've really thought that I would have there. I guess with English, Rory Lobb coming in, that big key forward, I'm hoping that English doesn't get pushed forward as much as he used to, and simply that just converts to higher scoring. Darcy, honestly, I had him in this morning and then I've swapped him out.
So we have your team fresh as a daisy right now, don't we? This is where it's sitting at the moment. Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it.
Subject to change.
We always put the asterisks on that. Absolutely. Yeah. Half the time I change it while we're talking, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a shocker for it. But Darcy, yeah, he can score that 180 plus type score that'll just really separate your team. And it might have been a couple of years ago, he went on a run where he went, 180, 170, 160 or something. I thought this is the next big king of the ruckman. And then last year, I had him in, and I think he missed round one late, and then I ended up getting him in even when he came back in as a bit of a pod. I think he averaged 103 or whatever it was, and stung me a little bit. But yeah, with Rowan Marshall, obviously always fond of him. Had him as my boy a few years ago, and finally Riders decided to retire. Thank God.
Yeah.
And everyone's jumped on Marshall and Madden, just the flexibility there.
There's been a lot of talk about what did they say? I heard Ross Lyon might go the double rucks. Campbell might get a little bit of a run. It obviously hasn't feared you out. I don't think it fears me out at all. Del, does it fear you? We've talked about Marshall being the number one must-have player this year, and Dunkley sitting very close in second. Del, are you still sitting on that philosophy?
For sure. There's a big difference between Tommy Campbell and Paddy Ryder, isn't there? So
yeah.
I don't see the Tommy Campbell experiment lasting that long with St Kilda, and he has played with only one major ruck in the past, and then gone that. I think his name was Jason Blake. He played as like a hybrid back / filling in the ruck when he first had the Saints. I like that you brought up Rory Lobb too, Dwayne. With Timmy English, Lobb hates playing ruck. So for the people that think, oh shit, he's 6 foot 100 and he's in the Western Bulldogs side, he's going to play ruck. But the bloke's built like a tree. There's nothing of him. He hates playing ruck. He will only play forward, high forward or deep forward, and that's it. You may get him around the ground doing the forward stoppages, which will then allow English to play that kick behind. So, yeah, I'm happy you brought that up because that's a good pod there, I reckon.
Yeah, I think the more I look at it, I really like the English pick. I mean, they've got so many tools, the Western Bulldogs, but they're all forwards. I think Darcy for Western Bulldogs is a good chance to go to the back line. So I don't think there's too much pulling him out. He might do the old ruck 80%, and it's 5 minutes on the bench here and there, and he just comes straight back into the ruck. They don't really need him to go forward. I guess the only thing you say about Tom Campbell is he's no Paddy Ryder, but that means he can't really go forward. He can only sort of maybe go in the ruck, but yeah, at that price, you got to stick with Marshall. But we soldier on into this forward line, which is absolutely stacked as I move up. Now, whoops, we've accidentally kind of made a little boo-boo as we put this team together. Goulden is obviously on the field, but, mate, this team is absolutely stacked in the forward line. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I guess Dunkley, an obvious one. Cornelio, I have my doubts about it. He probably provides the least amount of value out of Cornelio, Gordon, Rosie, Taranto. I guess that early 5-game run that I'm hoping GWS go on means that he performs well, and by that stage he's maybe increased in value and other people have jumped on. So that sort of mitigates that. I guess he's a little bit of a pod at this stage. Connor Rosie, for me, I've always thought he's going to be an absolute superstar. He was probably one of the first I picked, and he actually would be one of the few that hasn't left my team. I tend to just, as you can tell with this mid-price madness, everyone gets a run in my team. Tim Taranto, I think he's just a value pick and been crying out for years to just play pure mid rather than sitting at half forward up at GWS. And Errol, honestly, I didn't have him in. I've just jumped on the bandwagon there. He scored, 192 or whatever it was. That sort of ceiling is just ridiculous. So, yeah, we'll see how that pans out. He can obviously, get lost at half forward and maybe not produce those huge scores, but I'm just hoping Horse just, sends him to the middle every game.
I think he's is he round 3 biggest in or biggest out, possibly based on what happens in the first 2 weeks before the price change. But yeah, you can see why people have done it. I haven't. It's a price thing for me, and maybe also everyone's jumped on it. But look, I actually think I rate him extremely high as a player. I wasn't ready for him to jump in and do a 190 in the preseason, but look, I think there's reasons there. So yeah, talk us through the last 3. So mate, I cut you off there.
You're right. Yeah, with Errol, actually, I just thought the thing that really got me over the line was the 45 touches. I didn't think he had that in him, just to rack that, number of possessions. in terms of the last three, Oscar Allen, I think now with Josh Kennedy gone, he's never really had a history of any sort of decent scoring, but he's always had Josh Kennedy there, and he's only 4 or 5 years into his career. A bit of a one where I've had him in and out, just squeezing that last 80,000 when I need it into other players, and then I bring it back and bring Oscar back in. He could very quickly be out of my team come round 1 or even round 2. Fergus Grant, he looks like a really good player. I think everyone's going to end up with him. He's got that clear role. His mature age is the exact sort of rookie that everyone loves. And Bennett in there. Now that I do have the 88,000 in the salary cap, I will probably move him on to someone who's actually going to play. It was just a bit of a placeholder.
Yeah, too easy. Del, your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, Dunkley, Rosie, Taranto, they're in a lot of sides, aren't they? Along with Fergus Green. Errol's a special one. Like for me, he's not in. Just given that practice match was played without Callum Mills, who would normally play that role that he did play that day. Oscar Allen's a good one. I've picked Oscar. They're expecting big things out of Oscar Allen this year. And now that Nat Nui's gone down, a couple of years ago, he was used as a temp ruckman as well and scored not too badly going in as a makeshift ruckman. So at 200K and the potential of getting that dual position status come round 6 or 7, he might be nice to have forward/ruck.
I don't see it happening. I think they're going to play their 2 young boys. I think from what I heard today, both the young fellas are fit, and I think they're going to have to play both. Williams and Jamison is what
so they
I'm
are going to play both.
But what I'm hearing is they're playing both. I think they've got to look. I think West Coast have looked at it, and I think Darling's got himself up fit supposedly. So he's had the magic spray or whatever it is to get him right, which I think only helps Allen having both there. But I think there's still enough scoring potential for the 210. I do like him better than the Ben Kings and the things like that. I think it's a fair point. But he'll probably take the rucks in the forward line and things like that. But I can't see him getting DPP unless, and everyone who's watching along, look for the teams to come out. And if Jamison or Williams isn't playing, then Allen, you'd have to think would be the guy to go in there and pinch hit for sure. Yep.
I had another couple in there in terms of my mid-price madness was Cunnington and Tanner Bruin, who I'm interested to hear your thoughts on. Cunnington was, I think he had like 27 centre bounce attendances, but scored pretty poorly. I did read that game was a blowout, so it was scaled early, and that's why I didn't get the points. But what are your thoughts on Cunnington? He might end up in my team.
I like him. 20 contested possessions, and I'm glad you brought up that because no one ever scores well in a blowout. Yep. So he got some points early and then went quiet during the middle stages of the game and then came home hard again. If that game's any closer, he's scoring 100, 110. So while he's not in my side at the moment, I've still been looking for ways to get him in prior to round 1. Tanner Bruin, however, is in my side. He's been the constant at Geelong through their midfield the whole of the preseason, their practice match, their intra-club or whatever it was. They've bought him in from GWS. He does look the goods. He tackles. He uses the ball well. I see him being a predominant midfielder with them moving forward. They need an injection of youth. That's exactly what they need.
Yeah, I've been a huge fan of Cunnington. I've mentioned him from the start. Same thing. It's a monetary thing for me at the moment. In a strange way, that could be that little bit of POD away from Goulden with somebody who is going to go and have those centre bounce attendance. I think Callum Mills has got to come back into that Sydney line. I think Warner's still ready for another big year as well. So I think Goulden's shown what he can do, but he's also out of all of them shown that he can go forward and play that role or go out on the wing. It's a tough one. But I like Cunnington a lot. I think North Melbourne has realised they kind of need him in there. I don't think they're going to get the consistency yet from Sinkin or LDU just yet. So I reckon he goes in. I think Clarko doesn't like losing, that's for sure. And he's definitely not playing for the round 1 pick, that's for sure. I can guarantee you of that. But it's a tricky one with the money, especially when you look at a Fife at 313. What does that look like? But Bruin's a nervous one for me. I honestly haven't seen him play enough. And I've talked to Mickie about this a lot. I hate picking players that I haven't watched and truly seen what they're doing. And I think Geelong's a really tricky lineup this year. But let's play a little bit of the quickly, just some one-word answers to sort of get a few people who might be listening along. Fife, Flanders, Bruin. Dwayne.
Pass.
As in not picking any? None of them.
Pass on Fife. I just think if he's playing forward, I just look for guys who are going to be in the middle.
Yep.
Flanders, same. Pass. I know he scored pretty well. Some people I'd heard say that, look, he scored well and he didn't even need to be in the centre, so that's a positive. And I thought, well, I sort of think it's the opposite. It's so easy for those guys at half forward to just have a real quiet quarter, half, whatever it may be, and score a 50. Bruin, he's been in and out of my team, and he might end up back in there. I'm the same as you. I haven't actually watched them play. So those young guys who, I guess if you watch them and they're, a bit bigger and built, you think, oh, right, they're actually going to stay in there, compared to someone who's pretty slight, and you think, when the real stuff starts, he'll be the first one out. But it's interesting you say you've watched him a little bit and that, you're keen and sold on him. So
Mick, I'm going to get your answer in a second, Mick, but just to let Dwayne know, Mick is our watchman. Mick watched all 9 preseason games. Mick is our stat man. I need to meet his partner because what a woman, because that's phenomenal.
She's a patient lady. Yeah.
Oh, phenomenal. I love it. But Mick is the reason why I keep changing my team all the time, because he just says it with so much confidence as well. So I will throw the same question to you, Mick, because I think they're names that we just sort of didn't see in Dwayne's team, but people are talking about. So Bruin, Fife, Flanders.
Bruin, yes, he's in my side. He's going to play majority midfield minutes. You can see with Geelong, as we were saying earlier, they're looking for that injection of youth. He fits the bill. He uses the ball well. He's pretty hard at it. He's in my side. Fife, I'm with Dwayne. No. Yes, he's averaged over 100 for the past 9, 10 years or whatever it's been. But they've said that he's going to play predominantly forward. Some weeks that might get you 100. Some weeks that might get you 40. For me, it's consistency with my forwards. It's a no-go zone for me. With Flanders, at the moment, yes. He did score over 100, but he didn't play that much midfield. He did, however, go back and help out your Ben Longs and your Constables, driving the ball out of the back line. So when we're talking about that, the rebounding from 50 and scoring with good quality possessions with your rebounds from 50, they're good point scorers. That's why I'm looking at him at the moment. So we'll say for now, yes, but that may change.
Beautiful. Dwayne, very aware of your time, so I'll pump out a couple of really quick ones here. Now, I know Mick's answer because he picked Setterfield and not Hopper. If you had to pick one between Setterfield and Hopper, who would you take? I love the smirk. The smirk means it's a good question. I'm feeling good about it. But this is what the people want to know. These are the game changers, because some people haven't done your type of lineup. I know for a fact I'm sitting there with Hopper at the moment just because I feel confident about it. But Setterfield has been a chance to pop in. So you've obviously got both. If you had to pick one, where does it sit for you?
That's a very tough question. Setterfield, obviously, far more risk because of the lack of ownership, I guess. If you're wrong about Hopper, so is everyone else. So it doesn't hurt you much. In saying that, you got to be different to, I guess, reach the very top. So for me, I would go Setterfield.
Wow. Boys, I've got a long night ahead of me now, going back and having a look at my team just quietly after the responses.
Well, there's only 24 hours left till the first bounce, mate.
I'm not sleeping, and I apologise for my work already. Tomorrow, I'm just shutting the door to make it look like I'm busy. I'll tell you what. But Mick, I'm going to throw to you, mate. Any questions before we look to wrap up or go on? Any pressing ones while we've got the man in the hot seat?
Well, I guess with your experiences in the past and your team now, is there anyone as you scroll through the list you're like, I've got to find a way to get this person in the side? Like you've spoken about some players in your side where you're feeling a bit uneasy, like your Kellys and that. Are there any that aren't in your side at the moment for our viewers at home that you think, yeah, I've got to try and get him in somehow?
Yeah, I guess there's a handful, and it is really the guys we've touched on. It's I really want Laird in my team. He doesn't really get tagged. He pumps out just crazy scores every single week. You know, he's so consistent. It's Laird. It's if I'm really buying into the mid-price madness, it's Cunnington. And you might have even just sold me on Tanner Bruin. So
I was just going to say, and I've got a bit of a memory. If Goulden goes to Bruin, then you've got the cash. You've definitely got the money to go up to Laird for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That I was just thinking Gordon to Bruin, Tom Green to Laird would be what I'm thinking. Do you know what? I'm an absolute shocker for these last second madness things at 7:29 on Thursday night or Friday night, and I'm changing my team,
reversing trades flat out. Yeah.
Mate, try being in Perth. We get less time to get prepared for this, so we get less time to make that quick last minute decision. I tell you what, but.
Yeah.
Mate, we'll be watching your team. Mickie Dell right now is so chuffed that he feels like he's about to have made a team change for you. I can feel it. I'm so far away from this guy right now, but I can feel exactly what's going on the inside. Just quickly on that, though, if anyone does want to check out Dwayne's team and join the league, you can see it here on the screen. Our group code, our league code, 237113. Make sure you join. Am I right in saying you're in our league, Dwayne? And I'm feeling comfortable about it. If you're not, you're going to be now. Don't make me look stupid, please. We've got over 130 teams in there, so make sure you join in.
Up to 160 now.
Up to how many?
160.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Let's get to 200. Come on, everybody. Join in.
By the start of the season.
Beautiful. Mate, Dwayne, thank you so much. Del, I'll leave it with you.
There's a couple more we want to throw out, Robbie. We'll just go through the questions here. From Matty O'Brien. G'day, Matty. Do we think the Lions are going to win the championship this year? Thinking about getting season tickets and putting the seat on Dunkley or Neil each week. What do you think, Dwayne?
Do you think? Yeah, they're a massive chance. It's not a bad strategy, but, you know, Dunkley, Neil, do they impact each other and sort of reduce that ability to go 150 plus? Maybe. But, yeah, they're a massive chance, I think. Them, Melbourne. Melbourne's probably my pick, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Well done, Dale. We've got another one there as well, so we'll go one more. Thanks for, guys, this is your last chance to get those quick questions in. But, yeah, Jai Davis, thoughts on John Newcomb this year? I think he's just a fellow name. Say, is this Justin getting on doing another Conor McGregor and Conor McKenna moment? But, yeah, what's your thoughts on John Newcomb this year?
Mine, honestly, I haven't really considered him. He probably would be worth a look just because of Mitchell and O'Meara leaving. But to be honest, it hasn't even been on the radar, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's just
as a Hawthorn man. I think John Newcomb's just honest. I don't think, like you said, it kind of blew your mind a bit when Goulden went and racked up 42 touches. I think John Newcomb sort of still had that nearly was the number one mid-roll in a sense. I think Sam Mitchell loved him and backed him in and knew where the sort of trend was going to go. So, look, I think he could have a decent year. Yeah, I can see it, Del. I can see who's chimed in with a comment. Yeah, I think he's going to have a decent year, but I don't think he's Supercoach relevant just yet. Not at the price he's at. He's at that awkward price. So we'll put him up. Mr. Anthony Delaney, definitely a relation. This is actually a brother relation here that we can do. So, Lockie Hunter. Unders or overs? 392, 100.
For me, that's unders. He's got a set role on the wing there. Is he going to turn into a primo? That's the $1 million question. But with the way that he accumulates the ball and being opposite Ed Langdon on the other wing, like they're just going to play hand in hand with their game style. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at your 550, 560K by the end of the year. But it's that awkward price where you're either all in or you're not.
Any thoughts, Dwayne?
I'm gonna say overs. I actually just steer clear of anyone earmarked for the wing. That's why I didn't end up with Finn Callahan or Callanan, whatever his name is, just because once I heard that he was going to be stationed on the wing, I feel like guys can get a little bit lost out there and have that, have those really, really poor scores. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Big shout out to all the comments coming through. Really appreciate it. Troy Vickers, we see you there, mate, with a bit of comedy relief. Troy. I like it. Warwick Kappa must owned. Has Gary Ablett Jr. had a baby? I think that's directed at Mick Dell for sure. It's got to be. But no, we appreciate the banter, and hopefully everyone at home is enjoying this live episode. And I know I have. It's been absolutely fantastic. Del, I'll throw to you, mate. Where do you want to take this?
Yeah, so just before we wrap up, as we said earlier in the program, Dwayne, we've got the Standard Squeeze on as one of our major sponsors now. So on behalf of us, thank you for coming on our show. Thank you for passing on your knowledge, your past experience with Supercoach, and giving our viewers, our subscribers, a chance to see firsthand, I guess, the mindset of a previous winner. And for that, we've got a Standard Squeeze pack, a combo pack that's coming your way, courtesy of the Standard Squeeze. So from us and our sponsors, thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
It's been good fun, and thank you for the tip. I'll bring Tanner into my team, and I can blame you.
Yeah, do that.
If that's a way of getting you back on the show, just to jump on Dell and give him a spray, we'll take whatever we can get, mate. But honestly,
I'll be in the comments.
Yeah, we'll do a quick shout out to the Snap Fitness guys at Bendigo and Epsom. Guys, if you're looking for a gym to work out at and you're struggling for time with kids or family commitments, they do have free childminding there. The childminding people or the carers there all have working with children's checks, so you can get your workout in and have your children cared for, no worries. So go in, see Mark and Emma and the team at Snap Fitness Bendigo or Epsom. Tell them the Molten Boys sent you.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've got two more buttons to press before hopefully we go without a mistake. So I'm pretty chuffed with myself. But honestly, Dwayne, thank you so much for your time. All the best with your 2023 Supercoach season. Let's get another ring for you. If it's not Dell or it's not me, we're shouting out for it to be to you, mate. So again, thank you so much for your time. Everyone listening along live, thank you for your comments. Everybody who's been playing along on all our other social media platforms, we thank you for all your support. As we close in on round one, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. It's the best time of the year. I hope everyone gets some sleep. Put your apps away. Just trust your team. Back it in. This has been the Molten Fantasy Sports Podcast.
See ya.